3, 2, 1. Yeah. And action.
So, liebe Leute, wir sind bei unserem zweiten Termin heute nach einem langen Tag im Frost Museum of Science. Weil das in Miami ist, sind wir natürlich auch gezwungen, sozusagen mal zu Julian zu fahren. Und ich freue mich riesig, dass wir jetzt mal endlich, oder ich mal endlich Julian besuchen kann, denn das habe ich schon lange vorgehabt. Wir kennen uns schon eine ganze Weile. Deswegen jetzt endlich mal hier. Julian.
Hello.
Great to be here.
Great to see you, Alex.
I assume everybody knows you already. There's not really an introduction necessary.
Yeah.
Well, if so, you can just Google him and you'll find something.
Yeah. Hopefully all good.
It's fantastic that I finally managed to come visit you.
It's about time.
Yeah. We've been hanging out at conferences for quite a while.
Yes.
And meeting each other everywhere on the planet, but never at your house. So finally I get to see your tank, or your tanks, and also we spent some time in your garden right on the canal and saw some fish and different species and snails and all that stuff, so it's a lot of fun. And we also had a mango experience, which is...
we did. You're lucky, this is the time of year to come. Anywhere from May through, almost September, you can have some mangoes.
Fantastic. So we're going to plan that in for next year as well.
Yes.
To come with mango time. Maybe I should bring Sandra then.
Yeah.
And your tank looks fantastic. I remember that you shown pictures during that talk that was prior to Corona, when we met in the Netherlands at the Marine Aquarium Conference of Europe.
Yes.
And you gave a talk about how to prepare for disaster.
Yeah.
And you had that disaster.
I sure did. When you live in South Florida, these hurricanes are a given. We have to be prepared for power outages. I had always dealt with that by having some battery backup type pumps, and I didn't really have for extended outage protection. I had more temporary, and every storm we had I tended to stay. And that last one, Irma, I couldn't stay. I was looking after my mother at that time. So I had to just get everything set up, leave, and hope that it would work, and it didn't. So the batteries went out, and so I was without circulation for a really extended period of time. And of course it happened, at night when you don't have illumination to produce oxygen. So I lost fish, and then I lost corals. Subsequently, because of the high temperature with no power, no air conditioning, that wiped out my acros, but most of the other corals survived. And what I did after that was I was determined to have kind of an automated system, and the choice was either go with a generator that comes on automatically or have solar power and battery backup, and I went for the solar power and battery backup because it's something that I use all the time.
I think we talked about that briefly, that you got one of those larger battery packs that's connected directly to the solar and then acts as a backup, right?
Correct.
So it's not a only backup system, but it's a complete battery to use the energy.
For the whole house.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So every day the solar panels charge up. We have 2 of these batteries. They're called power walls. It's the Tesla power wall, but there's a number of different ones you can have for your home. And I have them charging up every day and discharging, so it's saving my electric bill, but also there's a reserve. You can program it to discharge only to a certain amount, so that if the power goes out, you have enough to carry you for so many hours.
Have you tried that actually?
Yeah.
And how long does it work? Like,
well, what you never know is when is that going to happen. Is it at a time when you've got your air conditioning running really high, or is your hot water heater on? But I have things timed in such a way that I've optimized it the best I can.
Okay.
Could it fail? Yeah, in theory it could, but not as badly as I had with Irma. You know,
Okay.
it would be back up and running as soon as the sun came up.
Do they require the grid to be working to give you power, or is that power wall also feeding into your
Yes.
house if
Yes.
there's no grid available?
Correct. So
Okay.
if the grid is down, the power walls keep my house running. In
All
fact, you barely notice it. When the grid goes down, there's just a subtle blink for an instant.
Okay.
And you know, when you get used to it, you can tell. And you can see it on your phone. There's an app and you look at it. Another thing, what most people can do if you don't want to invest in the solar power and those battery backups, there are now these wonderful lithium-ion generators, basically,
Okay.
portable, that can give you a complete, you know, full night protection. At nighttime is when you're really in trouble.
Yeah. But I mean, if you have to leave the house, that's always the worst case scenario. I mean,
Right.
we usually don't have that where we live, but I do have a generator.
Yeah.
After your talk, we got 3 generators at my
Good.
company and at home as well. So, and we also have, the generator alone doesn't help, so we have some gasoline stored as well
Yes.
in several locations, so we should be safe for a couple of hours, because that talk was really interesting on that part.
Right. I mean, what a lot of people do is if they have gas, you know, propane available in the house, they, you know, can have a generator hooked up to propane, so they're not worried about getting fuel.
Yeah.
Nothing is foolproof, but you know, there are these systems available. The generators are pretty reliable, but not 100% reliable, and you know, you have to exercise them and, you know, make sure they're working well. I think for, you know, people in an apartment, or, you know, a small home, that these portable lithium-ion battery things are the way to go.
Yeah.
So you have it. You can actually have them hooked up where it automatically will run your tank if the grid is down. You don't have to be there to do the connections. So that's what I really would recommend people look into if they are serious about setting that up.
Also, wie wir gerade gehört haben auf Englisch, ich will das nochmal ein bisschen zusammenfassen, was Julian erzählt hat. Das sind auch Teile, die ich aus seiner Präsentation damals mitgenommen habe. Also wenn man schon ein größeres Aquarium betreibt, und in der Größe hat so ein Aquarium ja auch immer nicht nur einen materiellen Wert, sondern auch einen großen ideellen Wert. Und die Tiere wieder so zu bekommen und auch so wachsen zu lassen und so groß zu bekommen, wie sie jetzt sind, das kostet unglaublich viel Zeit und natürlich auch Geld und eine Menge Nerven. Das heißt, wenn man schon so ein Aquarium hat, dann sollte man auch dafür sorgen, dass man die wichtigsten Sachen, um es am Leben zu halten, auch hat. Also man sollte sich Gedanken darüber machen, was kann bei uns passieren. Bei uns in Deutschland zumindest sind wir meistens immer vor vielen Sachen sicher. Das heißt, wir haben kaum Stromausfälle, wir haben kaum irgendwelche schlimmen Wetterereignisse. Aber hin und wieder, die Vergangenheit hat es ja leider gezeigt, kann das auch bei uns passieren. Und so habe ich zum Beispiel mittlerweile auch einen Stromgenerator angeschafft. Wir haben noch keine Katastrophen bei uns erlebt, wo man tatsächlich das Haus verlassen muss. Das war bei Julian der Fall. Der musste also mehrere Tage hier weg, die wurden alle evakuiert und dann muss man das einfach sich selbst überlassen. Und das war im Prinzip das Todesurteil sozusagen für viele Tiere. Das heißt, eine vernünftige Stromversorgung, die einfach sicherstellt, dass man das Aquarium immer betreiben kann, dass die Pumpen immer laufen, dass man Sauerstoffeintrag hat. Das sollte man klären. Also man muss für sich selber prüfen, was kann bei mir passieren, realistisch. Was brauche ich dafür, auch realistisch, und das kann schon mal auch ein paar hundert Euro kosten, bis man dann diese Komponenten alle beisammen hat. Stromerzeuger, Akku, Backup für Pumpen, die auch mit Backup-Systemen zum Beispiel laufen. Da gibt es für viele nachher die böse Erfahrung, sie kaufen sich einen günstigen Generator, haben irgendeine Pumpe und die Pumpe läuft aber nicht an den Generator, weil sie es vorher nie ausprobiert haben. Viele Generatoren können zum Beispiel keinen vernünftigen Sinus erzeugen, das ist bei vielen Geräten wichtig. Wenn man darauf nicht achtet, hat man dann das Problem, dass, wenn die Katastrophe eingetreten ist, ich plötzlich gar keine Lösung dafür habe. Dann muss ich wieder losfahren und was anderes kaufen. Also da sollte man sich ein bisschen damit beschäftigen, weil das sollten einem die Tiere wert sein, wenn man sie schon in der Größenordnung hält. Dann ist das, glaube ich, auch eine tragbare Investition. Das so als Zusammenfassung, was wir bislang besprochen haben. Was noch interessant ist, neulich ist Julian aufgefallen, dass seine Korallen nicht mehr so gut stehen. Und gleichzeitig ist bei ihm auch eine Lampe ausgefallen. Dann hat er erst gedacht, naja, das liegt bestimmt an der Lampe und hat dann in der Nacht- und Nebelaktion eine Ersatzlampe eingebaut. Er hat sich aber gewundert, dass sich die Korallen nicht erholt haben. Dann ist ihm nach und nach aufgefallen, dass es irgendwie auch ein bisschen stromfühlig ist im Wasser und ist dann auf die Suche gegangen und er hat eine Ursache gefunden, die ziemlich oft tatsächlich auch in Aquarien passiert, nämlich eine relativ kleine Pumpe, wo sich der Magnet aufgelöst hat. Den holt er gerade mal und dann kann er uns das mal erzählen, was da passiert ist. So that's where the magnet opened up.
It opened, it's swollen, the epoxy is broken, and
that gives you like neodymium and, well, depending on what the magnet is made
where they
out
have
of.
copper.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they don't have the copper in it. But
And you saw that on the corals?
Yeah, the light was out here, and I noticed the orange Montipora had turned pale like that, and all of these branches here, which are normally beautiful bright purple, became pale. And so I was like, God, you know, it's where the light was, but that's really intense. This is normally bright pink, and you can see it's almost brown now. That is normally insanely green, and it, you know, just turned brown like that.
So that's what Claude always says, corals never lie. So if you know your animals and if you have view into your tank every day, you should just pay attention to when the corals change, something must be going on. Right. So I knew that the light was out over here, and so it seemed like it coincided with that. Which it did in time. But when I saw it sort of spreading, you know, I thought something else is going on, and it was last night. That pump was here. You can see the circle where it was. Took it off and immediately saw that and was like, now I know. Okay. It's not the first time that I've had that experience. But have you been doing like ICP tests or anything?
I have not done an ICP test on it. I mean,
you don't do that in general because you trust your corals?
I do them occasionally.
Okay.
But I generally don't need to do that. But seeing something like that, if for example I couldn't find this, if I looked and couldn't find this, but the corals were losing their color, I would be doing an ICP test, and then I'd be scratching my head to figure out what's the source of the problem. The easiest thing to find is a magnet like that, and sometimes it's the pump itself where the housing, the winding has epoxy and that breaks. Sometimes inside where the impeller is, where the rotor is.
When the rotor opens up like that, I mean, some very old pumps with the magnets open, they sometimes just
squeeze it.
Just squeeze it open, and then they scratch the inside, and then eventually you reach the copper or the iron winding, and once it's past that point, the water gets in.
So I've seen all of that.
So, but you rather trust yourself than, and you would also consider an ICP test to help in finding things that you can't find in a different way.
Yes.
Julian vertraut also überwiegend seinen Augen und seinem Gefühl für sein Aquarium. Wir haben das neulich auch schon mal intern bei uns diskutiert, mit unserem Kumpel Claude natürlich, der das ähnlich sieht. Man muss schon auch einen Blick auf die Korallen haben, und die lügen eben nicht. Das heißt, wenn irgendwas ist und man findet dann nicht, so wie Julian jetzt hier glücklicherweise, gleich die Ursache, sondern man sucht sich dann tot, dann macht es eben absolut Sinn, auch mal vernünftig einen ICP-Test zu machen und dann sich Gedanken zu machen, wo kommt das plötzlich her, diese Änderungen. Und meistens sind es Änderungen, die ja innerhalb von Tagen und Wochen passieren, die plötzlich dann ein ganzes Becken umkippen lassen. Also das nochmal als Tipp, wenn es nicht unbedingt um Katastrophenplanung geht, sondern um Sachen, die einfach im Alltag passieren. Und Julian ist sicherlich jemand, der seine Korallen gut kennt. Und insofern kann man dem wahrscheinlich auch besser vertrauen, als dann irgendwelchen Tests, von denen man nicht weiß, wer sie denn wo gemacht hat. Aber als Hilfsmittel, wenn man eben besser werden möchte und Hintergründe dazu wissen will, dann absolut sofort machen. Julian, thank you so much for having us here. It's been a pleasure seeing you again, and hopefully I'll see you at Maze or somewhere else on the planet, one of the next conferences.
Yes.
And thank you.
See you then, Alex.
Absolutely.